This thing is getting a valve lash adjustment today. You heard that right, boys. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing valve lash on our 91 Accord CB7. This thing sounds like marbles when you fire it up. So we're gonna go ahead, take the valve cover off. It's been sitting here, so the engine is bone cold as it'll get. So first thing we gotta do is rip the valve cover off, take the spark plugs out, get an extension in a socket big enough to get into the crank so we can rotate it counterclockwise to get each hole at top dead center before we adjust the intake and exhaust valve lash. I've never done this before on this car, but I'll show you guys kind of how to do it. It's super simple, it's just a little bit tedious. You gotta jack up the driver's side, take off the wheel so you can get in with an extension and probably a breaker bar you'd want to kind of rotate that engine over. So let's get this thing jacked up, let's get going. Another new piece to the shop. These are like 20 bucks at Costco. I'm gonna set it up right here and it's gonna be awesome. USB Type-C. I mean, what could you really ask for, man? 19 bucks. She's in. A couple seconds later, we got more outlets. Now, let's jack this Accord up. And I just love this box, man. You can bring it right to me instead of walking across the shop just to get everything. It's mint. And you already know, had to represent. These, if you guys are wondering, are for sale. DM me on Instagram, Brash Garage. All right, so now that this side here is jacked up, we need to take off this wheel so we can gain access to the crank pulley to turn over the engine. So once you have this wheel off, boys, you got this right here, and right behind it is a socket to turn the engine over. But first, we need to pop the hood and take the plugs out. Now we need to take off these hoses and a couple bolts for the valve cover, and then take each spark plug out. I'm sure you guys have seen that a million times, so 3, 2, 1. Just like that, valve cover is off and spark plugs are out. They're all kind of looking the same. And yes, these plugs are a month old, so oil and shit is still getting in there, which is not good. But now what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be getting a feeler gauge, and we have to put each cylinder at top dead center. And now there's 4 valves per cylinder. 2 exhaust valves and 2 intake valves. Hole number 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to set hole 1 at top dead center, and we're going to be adjusting 4 valves, and we're going to be setting 2, 3, 4 on and doing 4 valves at a time. Now this row here at the front of the car with the exhaust manifold, these are the exhaust valves. This is the intake manifold. These valves back here are the intake valves. That's where your socket's going to go in there. This is a 19 millimeter. Then you're going to want a big extension, and then you're always going to turn it counterclockwise, and it should move very easily with the spark plugs out. Don't do it with the spark plugs in. You can see when I move it, you've seen the move and you've seen how to turn it over. You're going to need to make sure each cylinder is at top dead center, and for that we're going to need this cap removed, which is 1 screw right there, and then the other one is directly across from it. It's really hard to get this out, so I'm going to take power steering pressure line off. We don't have power steering fluid in it, it's disconnected, so there's gonna be nothing in here for me. And then I'm gonna take this ground off. So don't forget, we got the valve cover ground off. We're gonna take this ground off and the power steering pump just so we can get in there.
You okay, hon?
Nope. Minor casualty, we'll get back to it in a minute. So this bolt is incredibly hard to get to. There's not much room. And this is indeed an F22A4 CB7 Accord, and how I did it, I tried this end of a ratcheting wrench, too fat. I tried socket and swivel, too fat. This wanted to round it. A line wrench was too bent to go on, so I ended up using a 12-point end of a 10mm wrench just to break it loose, and then it should be loose enough to just tackle it with your fingers after. There you boys go. And just so everyone knows, those 2 bolts holding in that cam gear, This one, the long one, goes on the right hand side closer to the firewall, and the small one that's really hard to get out that I just showed you guys is on the left towards the radiator support side. Two different sizes. Okay, so this cam gear is super hard to get off to expose obviously the cam gear here. What I had to do was take off this wiring harness from this bolt right here, and then I just took it out of this clip right here. Then don't forget we took off the power steering line and this ground right there that goes to there, and then the valve cover. So all that's gone now, and we have our markings here. So as you can see, you have your up. So I'll put the markings on screen for each cylinder at top dead center, and I'll show you here what that looks like. You can also put an extension in the hole and watch until the extension comes up to the top and starts to go back down, and then that is top dead center for that hole. But it's nicer to have this cam gear just to be sure. So this is what I've been following here. It's Honda Tech, how to adjust the valves on F22. And as you can see here, piston 1 at TDC, mark up, piston 3, mark left because you're turning counterclockwise, right? So you go 1, 3, 4 is down, and then 2 is to the right because you just want to go from here to here to here to here, and you got to go counterclockwise. So you do piston 1, and then 3, and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and do that. I got to get that mark to be straight up. 12 thousandths feeler gauge for exhaust and a 10,000 feeler gauge for intake valves. You guys can follow that guide, but I'm just going to quickly explain this. For cylinder 1, you're going to go ahead and break these nuts loose and just tighten or loosen it until there's slight drag on the exhaust with 12 thousandths. Now that you have piston number 1 at top dead center, what you want to do is slide the feeler gauge in between, and as you can see, this is 12 thousandths and it's just skating around. You want it to have a slight bit of drag. You want to feel the tension on there, and then what you'll do is you'll tighten that nut back up as you're holding the flathead in place, and then this should have a slight bit of drag. Right now there's no drag. I can just move it around, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust this until there's some drag on it, and you guys will see that. And now you're going to slide the feeler gauge in between until it's got slight amount of drag on it. So right there's a slight amount of drag. Now what I'm going to do is hold this in place and tighten this lock nut back up. Now yes, there is fancy tools to do this. However, you can just do it like I'm doing with a closed-ended wrench and a screwdriver. Put them through just like that so you can just make your adjustments. So now, when we come back through without it there is a slight amount of drag on it. So you are going to repeat that for all of them, making sure you turn it over perfectly. I will link the how-to on Honda Tech in the description so you can see where to put your timing marks so each hole is at top dead center. Now you're going to repeat this for 1, 2, 3, 4, and remember, all these back ones are 10 thousandths, all these front ones are 12 thousandths. That's a little amount of drag. So once you feel a little bit of tension, you just want to hold it in place and then do this back up. Now what I've been finding is that the screw doesn't want to separate from the nut, so you'll need both good tools so you don't strip either out, because you're going to have to break them loose fairly hard. Now that both of these are adjusted, when you come back in with no tools, there's a slight amount of drag. I can feel the tension. Like, see, my hand moves back farther than it does when I'm not holding the tool. So there's a slight amount of tension. But after you do 12 thousandths on these two, then you bust out the 10 thousandths and do it on the back two there. Very self-explanatory.
2,000 years later.
Okay, boys, and she is all done. Valve lash is all set. Took us a few hours. We went over every single one of them twice. 12,000 exhaust, 10,000 intake. Now what I'm gonna do is get the valve cover and timing cover and all that back on, wiring back into place, and then we're gonna fire it up and see if it fixed our issue. And this is my makeshift bandage at the shop today. But fingers crossed, I hope this works. Should be good. Okay, boys, and there you have it. That's how you adjust valves on pretty much every Honda engine. The premises is the same. This one was just an F22 A4 out of 90's Accords CB7s. So now that everything's back on, let's go ahead and fire it up, see if it sounds any different. Just a quick overview of the bay. Everything is just how we came to it. Nothing is out of whack, everything's put back. We had a lot of stuff taken off, so I always just want to do a good once over after you take off a lot of stuff. But we look good, let's fire it up. Okay, here we go. First start after a valve lash adjustment. Stop. Oh my God, I forgot the bar on it. Send it. Way smoother.
So much better.
And that there, fellas, is how you adjust valves. I'm happy this thing fired up. That freaked me out. I guess we didn't do it. I didn't even listen to my own advice. I didn't look over the whole car. We left the breaker bar on the freaking crank and it stopped itself. It's stronger than the starter. Look at how much of the earth it dug up. Oops. And that there is a job well done, boys. Comment, like, and subscribe for more videos. Lots on order for the Civic. The Vel might even be getting some love. And today, the Accord got some love. All the cars are getting it right now. And we got major shop upgrades. First piece was the toolbox. Now we got that extension bar. And it is about to get a whole lot crazier. So if you want to see any of that, like I said, comment, like, subscribe, because I got plenty more content for you guys. Till next time, peace. Word to the wise, if you have a valve cover off, just do a new gasket, because we just did valve cover gaskets on this car not 2 months ago, and we did valve cover gaskets, spark plugs, tube seals, all that. And we just did valve lash adjustment, went to go put this back on, thought the valve cover seated right, but one of the hoops was inside of the valve cover and started melting away, and it was smoking really bad. So we could quickly shut it off, rip the valve cover off, and luckily Lordco was still open so we could get one of these. I'm gonna chuck this on and then all should be well.